when I think of all the energy I spent visualizing you as a radiant spirit. This is Rebooting the Beast, a podcast in 2 parts. I'm N. Burke.
And I'm Matt Molinaro. In the first episode of each series, we will review an original piece of media, and then in the next episode, we will discuss the reboot. And this week is the first episode, as I mentioned, where we'll be doing an original piece of media that was just quoted so perfectly by N.
Thank you. I know. I feel like I was mainly choosing between lines from Bonnie Hunt in my quote choices.
That was the one I would have picked, by the way.
Oh, yes.
The exact one. And I was mainly picking between hers, too.
Yeah. I feel like she was the primary comedy relief in this movie.
Yeah. And what is that movie?
Jumanji. Sorry, I thought you said it.
I didn't. You clicked the episode, though, listeners, so I guess you already know what you're getting into.
Hopefully, yeah. Made in 1995, starring Robin Williams and Bonnie Hunt, and also a young Kirsten Dunst, a kid whose name I can't remember, who also was the voice of Chip from Beauty and the Beast.
Yes, that was Jonathan... No, that's Bradley Pierce.
Okay. Also David Allen Greer
was in it.
And did you already say Bebe Neuwirth?
I didn't say Bebe Neuwirth, and I didn't say Patricia Clarkson.
Well, Patricia Clarkson has one line in the whole movie.
I don't care. I forgot she was in it, and I was like, oh my god.
I know. Every time somebody new popped up on screen, I was like, wait a minute. I know that person.
I totally forgot Bebe Neuwirth was in this movie.
Yeah, me too.
Wow.
When do you think was the last time you saw this movie?
Oh my gosh. I wouldn't have guessed as long ago as I think it was, to be honest, because watching it, I was like, oh, I forgot so much of this movie. Probably, let's say it came out in 95, probably 2001.
Okay, yeah, like a few years after, basically.
Yeah, like probably I was still in high school.
I do remember seeing this movie in the theater when it came out, but I don't know that I've seen it since then, actually.
I definitely had it on VHS after the theater or DVD. Probably VHS. Probably both. And I will tell you this. I also had the board game that was released.
I always wanted it.
And it's not good.
I figured it wouldn't be.
It was such a letdown. And, okay, I'm not a fool. Okay, even at that time, when I was more gullible as a child, I did not believe I was getting the game, in a wooden box. I didn't think it was going to look like that. I didn't think bats were flying out of my chimney. Is that a Nicki Minaj song? It was so boring. There was no attempt to make it even look like the game. Like, they could have put, like, a Pop-O-Matic bubble, like Trouble in the middle.
Yeah.
Nothing like that at all. It was just, like, roll the dice, pick up a card... Bats flew at you, go back 3 spaces.
Oh, yeah.
Yawn. You didn't miss out.
Good. Okay, that's good to know. Well, do you have the little plot summary?
Yes, I do. From IMDb. When 2 kids find and play a magical board game, they release a man trapped in it for decades and a host of dangers that can only be stopped by finishing the game.
All right.
Did you know that this movie was based on a children's book?
Not until I was reading trivia about it, no.
Me neither. And I didn't know that... I know that they obviously did a reboot, which we'll be doing next week. But I didn't know it was, like, as successful as it was, and that there is not only a sequel to the reboot, but also a planned sequel for next year.
Yeah, I was seeing that too.
I had no idea that they're making this a franchise, and I also, those of you who subscribe to our Patreon will hear this coming out in the near future, but I also found out that Zathura, the movie that came out when we were younger, was also in the Jumanji world, and I always wanted to see Zathura when it came out, but I was always like, this is such a copy of Jumanji. What is this, Jumanji in space? I didn't know it was the same author who wrote the Jumanji books, and in Zathura it supposedly picks up right where Jumanji left off, and the kids across the street pick up the game, but they also find Zathura.
I have no memory at all of Zathura.
Oh my god, the previews looked so cool when I was younger, and I was like, oh, this looks cool, but it looks like such a ripoff. But they should have mentioned it's actually like a spin-off kind of thing.
Interesting.
But we'll be reviewing Zathura in our Patreon, so Subscribe to find that at N and Matt.
Yeah. Well, should we get into the movie?
I'm ready. I
Okay.
was so excited to watch it, and as soon as I put it on, I felt like instant nostalgia.
Matt, my first line is the minute the drum sounds started, I was like transported back to the late 90s.
Oh, 100%. And I kind of forgot how prominent the drums played a role like throughout the movie, like you heard them. But as soon as they started, I was like, oh, the drums.
Yeah, yep. I kind of like had forgotten about them. I was like, oh gosh, of course, the drums.
Yeah, I instantly smelled pizza rolls in the microwave.
Well, we open in 1869, which I kind of vaguely remembered this part of two boys in a forest attempting to bury a box in the woods. Mm-hmm. And they're like kind of frantic. It's like rainy. They are like, Caleb, it's after me when the drums start, and they like finish burying it. And he's like, what if somebody digs it up? And the other boy, by the way, there's a couple boys in this movie who do not know how to act.
I mean,
this boy was shocking? One of them.
Yes.
Yeah. Where he was like, may God have mercy on their soul. And then they right away.
He must have been someone's kid.
Maybe, probably.
They're like,
honestly,
he's not going to be in it for long.
Yeah, he just needs to say one line. Watch it's like, I don't know, like Alan Rickman or somebody who it was actually that child. Somebody who ends up being a famous, wonderful actor, and here I am shitting on one of their first roles.
Listen,
we all have to start somewhere, right?
Exactly.
So then we cut to 100 years later, 1969, in the same town of, I forget what the town's name is, but it's somewhere in Massachusetts, right?
Oh yeah, I forgot it as well.
It doesn't matter, but it's in 1969. It's kind of this like idyllic little town. You see Alan Parrish riding his bicycle. Everybody's like, hi, Alan, as he's biking through town, until a group of boys start chasing after him on their bikes saying, prepare to die, Parrish.
Very, very typical of like bullies in this era of movies.
Yes.
They're always on bikes. They're always a group of boys led by one with the same haircut every single time. And it's always prepare to die. And it's Brantford, New Hampshire, by the way. That would kill me if I didn't say it.
So they, chase him through town, and he bikes to his dad's bike. I was about to say shoe shop. Shoe factory is much more accurate. Mm-hmm. The Parrish Shoe Company, and they're like, "Oh yeah, run to daddy, we'll be waiting." And he goes inside and looks for his dad, but first he runs into a worker at the factory named Carl, played by none other than
David Alan Grier.
I was like, I know that man.
I know. I totally forgot I totally forgot him in this movie completely, and now he's like the other main part of like comic relief in this movie besides Bonnie Hunt.
100%, yes.
I mean, that's hard to say with Robin Williams, but Robin Williams plays less of a comedic role in this movie and more of like a mushy role. I'm not trying to shit on Robin Williams' comedy at all.
No. I mean, he's kind of, I think, a notorious comedy legend, icon of all time, but this role is a little more
family-friendly, mushball,
yeah,
splendor.
Yeah. So David Alan Grier's showing him this new high-top sneaker that he has created, and he has a meeting that afternoon with Alan's dad to like show him how great it is, and it's gonna, change his life and change the Parrish Shoe Company's life, etc., whatever. And as Alan is holding it, his dad calls out to him, and Alan kind of like sets it down on a conveyor belt. And while they're talking, Carl's not looking, but it gets swept up into the machine and causes the machine to break, destroys the shoe in the process, and Alan is heading out of the room as Carl accepts the blame for, messing up the machine. And Alan sees this all happen, but doesn't say anything.
Yeah, and I was like, wow, you little shit.
Yeah, honestly.
Like, you just fucked up his shoe, his revolutionizing shoe that's going to, change the shoe game. And you're going to get this guy fired, and you're not going to say anything about it.
Right.
For no reason. But I also thought, what is this machine that this shoe went into? And why does it exist in this factory?
Convenient plot device.
You're right. Is there a need for a slow conveyor belt to a like mysteriously hooded shredder?
Oh, mysteriously hooded Shredder. That's the Teenage Mutant Ninja Turtles villain.
Yes. Now we know where it came from.
Yeah. So Alan gets beat up by the bullies out front, and we learn that it's because Alan has supposedly been hanging out with the head bully's girlfriend, Sarah. And
I mean,
after he
who
takes,
among us didn't hang out with all the girls in school?
I honestly, I mean, if this movie were made today, I'd be like, Alan's gay.
Same. Alan's me.
Yes. So he hears the drums because there's a construction site near the factory. And sure enough, he finds a crate, the crate that had been buried, and he's hearing the drums in it. And he opens it up and pulls out the Jumanji box, which is a pretty cool box.
Oh, exactly. That's why I wanted the game immediately. And the box for the game, when you buy it in the store, looks like the wooden box. But there's always something about a board game if it's in a wooden, like the fancier versions of the board games that come out that are like wooden that just make it feel so much more distinguished, you know?
Yes.
Also, this kid is like out, I know it's the 60s, but he's just out on his own on an open construction site, just jumping in.
I know.
Just what you do.
I mean, I guess we all by a caterpillar thing.
Adventured. Yeah.
Okay. So he scampers home with the game to the Parrish family mansion, which is huge.
Very.
And opens the game, and we see it's called Jumanji, of course. And he accidentally drops 2 pieces on the board, but hides the game when his mom calls to him. And his mother is none other than
Patricia Clarkson.
Again, with like 2 total speaking lines in the movie. Because we kind of learn that evening that they're going to be sending him away to a boarding school where there's a building named after the Parrish family. And this makes Alan and his dad fight because Alan already kind of feels like he's too visible in the town for being a Parrish. Mm-hmm. And this is going to make it worse when he like moves into a building named Parrish.
It's kind of like what happens in Wednesday.
It is kind of, yeah. So he's like, I'm never talking to you again. They leave for their dinner party, etc.
It's very, very like fight with the parents, slam the door.
Yes.
Nobody understands me moment. And at this time, I'm like, the dad's a total dick.
He does seem like a total dick, yes.
You know, we only see this one moment of him, but he's like a total dick. We were always sending you away. Now we're definitely sending you away because you got beat up. Mm-hmm, and he tells him, like, you know, there's this messaging of like, oh, I'm glad you fought those boys. Good for you.
Yeah.
Sorry you got beat up, but you took it like a man.
Yeah, exactly.
Ugh.
Gross. So he packs a suitcase and is about to run away when he grabs Jumanji on his way toward the front door. And he's about to leave when Sarah, the girl that he was beat up for, stops by to return his bike. And she hears the drums too. And so they open the game together.
Mm-hmm. Now, one thing I hope he does is open that suitcase back up and take that loaf of Wonder Bread that he randomly threw in there and put it back on the shelf before it rots.
Yeah, honestly.
I would have loved to play this game. Are you kidding me?
Well, I mean, aside from the risk of death, you mean?
Oh, yeah. But like when she's like, you want to play this game? She was like, I'm too old for board games. I'd be like, oh my God.
Oh, right. Like in the world of the movie where you don't know that it's coming yet. Like, yes, I would have been like, oh, this looks awesome. I'll play this.
Yeah, exactly. Yeah. I didn't just come here to talk about your bike.
Yeah. So she rolls and the board says, or rather she refuses to play but tosses the dice down. The piece moves on its own, which kind of stuns both of them. And the little mystical crystal in the middle says, at night they fly, you better run. These winged things are not much fun. And by the way, it took me until like the end of writing down all of the things that the Jumanji board says to be like, these are spells from Charmed. Or like Sabrina the Teenage Witch. Like they really are like the perfect little rhyming couplet spells from some 90s witch TV show.
Without a doubt. Without a doubt.
And they hear squeaking in the chimney, but nothing happens yet. And then Alan rolls, and his thing says, in the jungle, you must wait until the dice roll 5 or 8. And he gets sucked into the video game. And it's kind of horrifying looking.
Oh, yeah. It's like he becomes. I mean, it's corny-ish. It's pretty corny if you look at it in a way, but it's not totally because he becomes like a flat version of himself, like the image of him, and then it swirls out and into the game.
Yeah.
It's kind of cool still. Even though it's very outdated effect, I still thought it was kind of cool as it was.
Well, we're going to be talking about the effects more, and I think this was one of the better ones in the movie.
I thought it was successful. And also, I don't know if you're a big fan of this actress or not, or because I think she does more musicals, but the little girl who plays Sarah is Laura Bell Bundy.
I recognize that name, but I didn't know why.
I know her from musicals because she was in Legally Blonde the musical and a few other ones as well.
Oh, okay.
And she's like a musical theater gal. Just
okay.
Looking up her video, and I was just looking up her IMDb and a video started playing. But yeah, I was like, oh, I did not even recognize her. Get it, girl.
Yeah. And she's screaming because he got sucked into a board game, but then bats come flying out of the chimney. And I will say, I thought the bat special effects looked pretty good.
I totally agree.
Yeah.
When they're most successful with the animal special effects is when they do things like this, where they have rapid movement.
Yes.
They don't spend a lot of time focusing on a non-quickly moving animal.
Correct.
That's when it's most successful.
Yes. And they chase her out the house. She screams. The door closes behind her. And it cuts to 26 years later. And we kind of see the parish mansion has been sort of abandoned / is now dilapidated.
Yes.
And we kind of get almost like a Beetlejuice vibe, especially when Bebe Neuwirth walks in, because she's like buying the house and is going to be renovating it and making it, new and fresh. And she's like, I'm going to put a bar here and da-da-da-da-da. And she's taking care of her niece and nephew, whose parents passed away in a skiing accident, Kirsten Dunst and Peter. By the way, all of my notes say Kirsten because I couldn't remember. I think she's Judy.
She's Judy, and Peter is Bradley Pierce. But I don't think he's done anything besides be voice,
Yeah.
for that.
So, they're kind of like traumatized children. Peter doesn't speak. Kirsten kind of has developed this sick sense of humor about life now that her parents have died. I guess not an unfamiliar role for her because she kind of plays the little vampire Claudia in Interview with the Vampire, but
which I love her in.
Yeah, she's great. Wasn't she one of the youngest ever nominated for an Academy Award for that?
I think so.
Yeah. Okay. Peter takes some stuff up to the attic and there's a bat up there. He screams, and the next day a pest control man comes and he's like, well, there's no guano, which I was like, the minute I heard guano, I was just like, I feel like this is made for kids who are in a science class age learning about bats because, who says guano? Anyway.
Exactly.
And Kirsten happens to have a book about bats and points out the one that Peter says he saw. And the guy's like, that's an African bat. Those don't exist in the U.S.
Okay. Can we pause here?
Yes.
Number one, the bat he saw was an animatronic upside-down Party City bat.
Yes.
Not an African bat. Number two, it was battery operated. Number two, Kirsten Dunst, from the description of this boy in the attic seeing a bat, found in a textbook the exact bat. And number three, the exterminator is familiar with African bats.
Yeah, it was kind of a silly, unnecessary scene in my mind, but
it's this book. It's
whatever.
This
And he's the one who tells them about the boy who disappeared in this house, Alan Parrish, and he says the rumor is he was murdered and chopped up into a million pieces by his father, and could be buried anywhere inside the house. Apparently, these people have never watched true crime before because I'm like, you don't chop up and then bury the pieces in the house. Like, what are you talking about?
How does that work? How does that work? They're decomposing
all
everywhere
around you.
Smells.
Yeah. Anyway, that night, Kirsten Dunst hears the drums and goes into Peter's room, and she's like, "Do you hear that?" And he talks to her, and they both hear the drums, but they ignore them and go to sleep anyway.
Do you hear the drums, Fernando?
And then the next morning, Bebe Neuwirth is getting them ready to go to school. And she's like, the bus will be here any minute. I have to go. Are you okay waiting for the bus? And they're like, yeah. Meanwhile, they're hearing the drums. And so the minute she leaves, they run upstairs to find the Jumanji game in the attic.
Bebe Neuwirth is not interested in these children.
At all. At all.
Their parents just died, which are her relatives.
Yes, her sister or something.
And she is so uninterested. She's like, you guys got the bus by yourselves? You good?
I think I would drop them off to their first day of school.
Yeah. We don't have furniture really yet or food in the fridge, but you good?
Yeah.
Also, while talking about this more later, it seems like Bebe Neuwirth works in like another state.
It kind of does, yeah.
But more on that later.
Yeah. So they open up the Jumanji board and Kirsten starts reading, about it. It's Jumanji, a game for those who seek to find a way to leave the world behind. Something, 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 blah, 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 blah. And they're like, the pieces on the board won't move. And they're like, huh. And then Peter
Kirsten goes, it must be microchips.
Yes, because in 1969, when they moved on their own, Sarah said, it must be magnets. And then this time, because it's the 90s, Kirsten Dunst goes, they must be microchipped. And I was like, okay, come on. Anyway, if this movie were set in 2021, they'd be like, they must be AI.
Yeah, exactly.
So Peter pulls out 2 more pieces that kind of magnetically or microchiply snap themselves to the board. And they decide to start playing, and Kirsten rolls first and gets a 6. And her little thing says, a tiny bite can make you itch, can make you sneeze, can make you twitch. And giant mosquitoes appear. Like, we're talking the size of a cat.
Yes. Like Sonic the Hedgehog game size mosquitoes.
Yes. So, they're screaming. She hits one with a tennis racket out the window, and the other 2 follow out the window, and they're like, huh. And then they roll again anyway.
Right. I mean, a lot of choices. They opened a game that they heard mysterious music from downstairs.
I mean, yeah. There's some
a lot
mystery
going on. It's a lot of scary stuff.
I always interpreted the drumming to be sort of like, not like hypnotic, but sort of like a pull. Like a call.
Peter Piper.
Yeah, exactly. So he rolls and gets double 1s, and his says, this will not be an easy mission. Monkeys slow the expedition. And they hear smashing downstairs and run downstairs and see that the kitchen is full of wild monkeys. Mm-hmm. And Matt, the CGI on these monkeys is not good.
At first, when they open the door and I see the monkeys like all over the room, I was like, oh, the monkeys. And I was like, okay, 90s CGI. And then, as soon as one of the monkeys turned their faces towards the camera.
Yeah.
And I was met with those Roger Rabbit end of the movie eyes on every single one. I was like, oh my God, is this like... It looked like those ads that would come up on your screen when you had AOL for like free smileys. Yes.
Yeah, they were...
On every single monkey. It was so distracting.
Yeah.
And the way they moved was so
they're
wild.
meant to be scary, right, in the movie, but they're scary because of the way that they look, not because of the things that they're doing.
Exactly. They probably would have been a good audition. Those monkeys, as they were, could have been in the modern day movie Cats.
Yes, 100%. And also they appear to be like homicidal monkeys because one of them picks up knives and starts like throwing them at the children.
Yes. Oof. Okay.
But all the monkeys flee out the front door of the house, and they go back upstairs to the game, and Kirsten reads, she's like, uh-oh, I didn't see this part. And it says, adventurers beware, the game will continue until a player reaches the end and calls out the name of the game. So they're like, we have to keep going.
Yeah, she's not sure why. Finish fast. There's no skill involved.
Right.
And you know what? She's not wrong.
She's not wrong.
I wish they had taken that advice throughout the whole movie.
Like, just roll really fast.
Just finish fast.
Yeah, exactly.
She's good at rules, though. I mean,
yeah.
She's like, no, you have to go again. No, this is how it goes.
Yeah, she's the game master, for sure.
She's like me. I'd be reading the rules to everybody at the beginning of the game.
Yeah. So Peter rolls a 5 this time, and it says, his fangs are sharp, he likes your taste, your party better move post haste. And we get kind of this, like, they're up in the attic, which apparently there's a piano in the attic, which, good God, lifting a piano all the way up to an attic sounds like a nightmare.
Oh, God.
But we see, like, a lion's tail drift across some keys, and it's kind of, like, eerie, and then a really bad fake Muppety lion face appears and growls at them.
Oh, the big stuffed animal?
The big stuffed animal that is meant to be a real lion.
Listen, I appreciate the effort with the practical effects, but it really looked like the kind of lion that pops out in like one of those one of those rides you go on in Disney World or something.
I was just gonna say, like the Jungle Cruise at Disney World.
Exactly, where it just comes out and snaps at you every 12 seconds all day
on a loop. Yeah. So I will say that periodically when the lion is in motion and it's chasing them around the house, that it looks better than the prosthetic lion.
Yes.
This is a rare case of when the CGI effect looks better than the practical.
I agree. The CGI lion is not as bad. And for the most part, the CGI lion I would say is pretty good. But every once in a while, it looks like it's got some sort of like demonic face. Like gnarled demonic like face as though it's been bitten by a zombie 12 years ago. And then it goes back to being a regular lion again. It's very strange.
I do not remember seeing that. Maybe you were just a little too high.
I mean, I probably was, but I'm telling you.
That is so funny. So Robin Williams appears, and which, you know, because Peter rolled a 5, so he's been released from the game, and he kind of like fends off the lion and tricks it into jumping into a bedroom and closes it behind him.
And he's very George of the Jungle right now. He's long-haired,
yes. Covered in plastic banana leaves.
Yes. What was that movie? Encino Man. That's what I'm thinking of.
Oh,
back
with
in the day.
Brandon Fraser?
I think so, and like maybe Pauly Shore?
That sounds right, yeah.
Anyway, but yeah, this is very Man of the Jungle.
Yes. And he's like, somebody roll a 5 or an 8. And he chases them around and gives them a big hug because he has spent the last 26 years living in the jungle and fending for himself. Which, to me, the odds of a privileged 11-year-old from Massachusetts surviving in the African jungle seem very low.
Listen, don't underestimate Alan like everyone else did, okay?
Okay, fair.
He is gay and he made it through.
Yes.
I was gonna say at this point, like, okay, this is kind of strange that they're just like, oh, there's a man in my house that looks like and smells like he has not seen a running water faucet in 26 years. Let's hug him and talk to him. But at the same time, they're releasing animals from this game, and they seem scared in the moment, but then unfazed enough to just go back to it as their house is destroyed.
Yes,
so,
exactly.
I guess I can suspend my disbelief.
Yeah.
Oh, God.
So he, of course, we get the typical, like, what year is it? He's running around like, Mom, Dad. Mm-hmm. And he's like, where are my parents? And she recognizes him as Alan Parrish. And she's like, they don't live here anymore. So he, like, runs out of the house to go find them. Almost gets run over by a cop car. Jumps on the hood at the last time, a la the next Karate Kid. And recognizes the cop as Carl from the shoe factory, who is now a police officer in the town. Meanwhile, as Cop Carl is talking to Alan, and Alan's kind of like frantically asking, like, what year is it? What's happening? Etc. A couple of monkeys get in the cop car and shoot the shotgun through the roof and then drive off with the car.
Why is there a shotgun?
I think that's pretty typical, that it's like mounted into the car like that.
Oh, God.
I mean, at least it was, I think, in the late 90s. I don't know if it is today.
Christ.
I don't know. They've got like AI robot dogs that are going to come kill us now instead of shotguns, but hey.
Yeah. Oh my God, these monkeys got more terrifying as the movie went on too, because
they got more and more. You know what it really reminded me of was Gremlins.
Oh yes, totally.
Which, is there a reboot of Gremlins?
Oh, I hope so.
I know, because I kind of want to do that if so.
100%.
So he runs off he runs off, finds the abandoned... He runs through the town, and the town is kind of in disrepair.
Kind of?
Which, I mean, like, super in disrepair. Like, everything is covered in graffiti. Everything's closed. All of the...
distinguishable business is an adult film store.
Right. And
Like,
there's, like, homeless encampments everywhere. It's really something bad has happened to this idyllic town in 26 years.
Yes, and it has nothing to do with the animals yet. It's just because of the shoe factory.
I mean, I guess that's the implication, is that, like, that was the major industry in the town, and when it kind of closed down, everybody else sort of, like, lost their employment. I don't know.
God, come on.
So he gets to the shoe factory and sees it, in disrepair, and is like, what's going on? He sees a man up in his dad's office, which he thinks it might be his dad, but it's just a man who lives in the abandoned factory. Mm-hmm. And he kind of learns from this man that after Alan disappeared, his father kind of gave up on life and the shoe factory collapsed. And he gives him some normal human clothes. And Alan asks, like, where can I find are the parishes still around? And the guy's like, yeah, on top of whatever hill.
He's like, I see them sometimes. No, this is so annoying.
I agree. The way he says it.
Yeah, he clearly is asking about, these people. And he's like, yeah, I still see them around on Adams Street sometimes. And then we cut to a graveyard.
I know.
I see
the way he
them
says it
around
implies that, like, they're out and about, but he clearly should have said they're on Adams Street or something like that. But
right back. I would have got to that graveyard, said hi to mom and dad, and I would have went right back to that shoe factory, and I would have given that man a piece of my mind. Oh my God.
So his parents are dead. And meanwhile, on the way back, we see
the kids are convincing him, like, we have to play. We have to play the game. Don't you see? And we hear, like, on the news, I think it's like a crashed car, because now everything is going crazy in the town. Started to go crazy in the town with the events of the game, because we hear there are over 50 patients out there with bites.
I think
serious bites.
I think the 50 bites thing is a little later, but this is the point where we see the car crash, and we see a woman who's been bitten by the giant mosquitoes kind of, like, seizing and foaming at the mouth. Oh, that's right. And
one of the doctors says something like that while they're, like, taking her. Another one. There's, like, over 50 cases already.
Yes.
That's what it was.
And so they get in the woman's car because they hear the mosquito, and the mosquito tries to, like, punch through the top of the convertible car to, like, get at them. And he's like, it's okay, we're safe, just stay low, like, it can't get through glass. And then the mosquito starts punching through the glass with its beak, proboscis. I don't know what that's called.
A little needle on his nose. And it started piercing through the ceiling of the car, and it made me think of my mom's ceiling of her car in the 90s, which was held up by little pins. It was a sky blue, powder blue, like, Buick of some type.
Uh-huh.
And the whole ceiling was held up by pins. Because it was just falling on your head. And when these little bugs started piercing into that ceiling, I was like, oh, that whole ceiling's fallen on their heads now.
That's so funny.
Took me back.
So they managed to speed away before the mosquito can break through the glass and
who
get
drives?
Back to the house. Alan.
Who's never driven before in his life.
Correct.
And as an adult, this car ride scene was more scary than anything else so far in the game.
I agree. I was like, dude, the mosquitoes you could survive, but you could die in a car crash at any second.
Yeah. But then they get home and he gets to clean up.
Yeah, he cuts his hair and he shaves, and he's like, oh, no more banana leaves when he sees toilet paper in a toilet for the first time in 26 years. And they kind of reverse psychologize him into playing the game. They are like, oh, are you afraid? Are you scared? Little boy, are you scared? And finally he agrees, but he's like, I'm not scared. And I think it's Kirsten rolls, but nothing happens. Mm-hmm. And this is when Robin Williams sees the board and is like, oh, you are playing the game I started in 1969. It's not your turn, it's Sarah's. And so they realized in order to finish the game, they have to track down Sarah. Mm-hmm. Who, this was kind of the most, like, not super believable part to me, that they go to her childhood house. which she does live there, but she has renamed herself Miss Serena, and she does psychic readings out of the house. And she's like, oh, I don't go by the name of Sarah anymore. And I was like, I feel like you can do that kind of thing if you move, but just staying in your childhood house and being like, I'm now Miss Serena, like in a town this size?
Right. In a town this size where everyone is either apparently dead or a Walking Dead style zombie walking the streets.
Correct. Anyway, she recognizes Alan. She faints. They take her unconscious body back to the parish mansion.
No one notices a strange man carrying a woman over his shoulder.
Correct. And we get a great scene where immediately it cuts to her on the phone and she's like, hi, Dr. Moore, it's me. Remember that thing we talked about that definitely never happened? Well, I'm having a hard day and I really could use a consultation, which I just thought was so funny to me.
Me too. I love like these moments of reality, kind of.
Yes. Because we learned she has apparently spent thousands of years in therapy convincing herself that the game wasn't real. And they trick her into accidentally rolling the dice by kind of like offering, he's like, okay, you don't have to play, just hand me the dice. And then he pulls his hand away at the last minute and she drops the dice on the board and it's considered a roll. And that's when we get the line where he's tricked her and she says, when I think of all the energy I spent visualizing you as a radiant spirit.
I love that moment.
It was so good.
Yeah, he's like, it's the rules of the forest, the jungle, Sarah. You'll get used to it.
Yeah. So the glowing orb says, they grow much faster than bamboo. Take care or they'll come after you. And I just have to say, sometimes I feel like whoever wrote these little rhyming couplets should have paid more attention to the meter of the words, because I don't like when the meter would force you to emphasize the wrong syllable in a word in a poem. It bothers me.
What was it again?
They grow much faster than bamboo. Take care or they'll come after you.
Oh,
like
yeah.
it doesn't quite work. Anyway.
It doesn't.
Thank you. So vines immediately start crawling through the walls. And this was a part of the movie where I was like, wait a minute. Because to my knowledge, I don't think there are plants that are like sentient hunting plants in the world.
In Jumanji. It's coming from Jumanji, which is a magical game.
Well, except that Alan has been in the jungle and he like it recognizes them. He's like, stay very still. Like the purple ones are bad, but you know, the big yellow bulbous blobs or whatever are the ones you really have to worry about. So he's been like surviving these deadly plants for the last 26 years, it seems like.
It has. How did he learn that?
I don't know.
You'd only know they were poisonous if you met somebody who told you, which we have no indication he has, or if you touched one and got poisoned.
Yeah, exactly.
Listen.
Anyway.
Alan's got a lot of explaining to do about what his time in Jumanji, okay?
He does.
That's the movie we need.
I honestly, I would read a book of somebody writing about Alan's time in the jungle, in the Jumanji jungle.
I need to know.
Yeah. So, meanwhile, the vines snag Peter and drag him under the rug, and a giant yellow flower tries to eat him. It kind of looks Little Shop of Horror-y.
Very, very. I like the way it looked.
Okay. I think there were aspects of the fake plants that looked really plasticky that I didn't love, but again, this one was more practical effect than CGI, I think.
Yeah.
Alan saves him with a sword, slashes through the vine. And we cut to Carl, meanwhile, the police officer, who finds his cop car and it's been crashed into a tree. And this is kind of one of my favorite running bits in the movie, is his cop car getting more and more destroyed over the course of the movie.
Yes.
It's so funny to me.
It's like when you play a video game where your car can just be totally destroyed, but you can keep driving around like Crazy Taxi or something.
Yes. So, back to the parishes. Sarah tries to run away, but he's like, nope, the game is not over yet. And she's like, Alan, and they kind of like have a back and forth about who suffered more from this game in 1969. And they kind of like have this moment where they both realize like how alone they felt or were for 26 years. Because he was in the jungle, but she was labeled like the crazy girl who made up stories about the boy who disappeared kind of thing.
Yeah.
And she was kind of ostracized. So that they kind of bond over that.
I like these moments. I thought the
I
acting
agree.
with Bonnie and Robin Williams were just like really well done in these moments because
I agree.
even like the earlier scenes when Robin Williams finds out his parents are dead and it's 26 years later, just like the look on his face, I almost got teared up a little bit.
I know. Robin Williams is a great actor.
Yeah, like really.
So.
Do you ever see the movie Jack with Robin Williams?
I don't.
The
Is that the one where
grows,
No, I don't think so.
he ages faster than other people, so he's like Rob Williams, but he's actually like 9 years old.
Oh no, I never saw that.
Oh my god, your heart. Okay, never mind.
Okay, so they keep playing the game. It's Alan's turn. He rolls, and it says, "The hunter from the darkest wild makes you feel just like a child." And as he's reading it, this is the part that kind of confuses me because it seems like he knows this hunter, but then there's things he says later that imply he doesn't. And so I'm just unclear because he's like immediately scared of a hunter named Van Pelt who starts shooting at him with a shotgun and chases him out of the house.
Well, here's my theory.
Okay.
The actor who plays Van Pelt is the same actor who plays his dad.
Correct.
And I'm guessing that his experience with Van Pelt is a hunter that lives in Jumanji, I'm sure, and he's encountered before, but has looked at him as like the figure his dad played for him in his childhood of like this imposing,
Okay.
It's like a psychological connection to his dad that makes him scared of him.
But do you think he's encountered him before?
I think he's been aware of him in the Jumanji world.
Okay.
Because he was like, he knew who it was. He had a name for him and stuff.
Yeah.
So he must have known who he was in the world of Jumanji, but until he rolls, he's not like after him, I guess. But he must have feared him in some way. In like, it's kind of loose, but I think they're trying to make it like he views him the same way he viewed his dad growing up.
Yeah.
And like,
yeah.
The whole thing
Be
is
a man.
about that.
Yeah.
Exactly. Be a man, face me, face your fears, face your unresolved problems with your dad.
Yeah.
All that. Very deep.
Well, meanwhile...
Van Pelt.
Yeah. Meanwhile, he chases Alan down the street, firing a gun indiscriminately, and poor Carl, this is where his cop car suffers many shotgun blasts, breaking several windows and getting several bullet holes through the car. But it distracts him long enough that Alan is able to get away and makes his way back to the house. And while he and Bonnie kind of bicker a little bit, Kirsten is like, I'm rolling now. Okay, I'm rolling now. It's my turn.
Watch.
And her little thing says, my autocorrect must have messed this up. It's something thunder. Staying put would be a blunder.
Yeah, it's like, you'll hear or feel the rolling thunder or something like that. I don't remember.
Yeah, and it's a stampede, which I remember that from the previews pretty explicitly.
Yes.
And rhinos and elephants stampede through the house, smashing everything, and zebras and a pelican, I think.
Yes, a few pelicans, but one of note.
One of note, who snaps up the game box and flies away with it. Mm-hmm. And Alan shouts at him, "Why didn't you grab the game, Peter?" And Bonnie Hunt has a great line where she says, "Ignore him, sweetie. He's a Libra."
Yes! I also love in one of the previous scenes right before this when Robin Williams and Bonnie Hunt are arguing about who had it worse. Bonnie Hunt goes, you think anyone showed up at my 14th birthday?
Oh, so good.
Yeah.
Meanwhile, we get a little cutscene of Van Pelt going and buying an upgraded gun because he's out of bullets. So they give him like a new like sniper rifle because he pays them with like a handful of like solid golden
coins.
Yeah. And he has the line, "You're not a postal worker, are you?" Because this was like around the time of like quote unquote going postal and like the postal office shootings, which I was like, oh, it's a little bit in bad taste, but okay.
Yeah, exactly.
And then we cut back to the crew. They are trying to get the game back from the bird, which is like by a river. and it falls into the river, and Peter goes after it and hangs from a branch like a monkey, which I think is foreshadowing. And I had forgotten about that until he does that. I was like, oh yeah,
Me
I remember
too.
now. Carl shows up and attempts to arrest Alan, and he kind of like, Alan sees himself almost get like sniper shot. And so he's like, it's okay. He can take me. It's fine. I'll be back soon. So Carl drives away with Alan. And while this is happening, Peter has made a mistake and tries to cheat at the game because he realizes if he rolls a 10, then he will win the game. Mm-hmm. So he tries to drop a set of 5s to get a 10. And the board says, a law of Jumanji having been broken, you'll be set back more than your token. And he starts turning into a monkey.
Oh, he looked so cute as a little monkey boy.
Yeah. Apparently
like,
he had a really
creature.
good time when I was reading the trivia about it. He enjoyed like the prosthetic process and had fun playing a monkey kid.
Oh my god, are you kidding me? If I was a little kid, that was my dream.
Yeah.
Be a little like anthropomorphic creature in this world.
Yeah.
So cute.
So Alan and Carl talk on the drive to the station, and Alan reveals that it's him, Alan, and he apologizes for the conveyor belt thing. And I think they maybe crash in surprise, or maybe he just pulls over. I don't know.
He
cut back.
slams to a stop in shock.
Yeah, okay. The town has started to unravel because the stampede is just kind of like indiscriminately running through town. And so they have the game and they're like heading for the station, I think, to reunite with Alan. But Van Pelt takes the game away. Peter steals it back and then runs into a car, which almost gets crushed by the stampede. And then Van Pelt takes the game back again. And then he creates a lure where he like runs into a department store with the game and leaves it out in plain sight and captures Sarah, which I'm like, you had the kid and you have a gun and you were next to her already. Like, why did you need to lay a trap to get her? Like, she was right there.
Right. But there's a lot of supermarket antics that wouldn't happen. We wouldn't get this like crazy episode of Shop Till You Drop if we didn't let them run around the store and have the tires going crazy and the laundry detergent traps. And I was into it.
It was a very entertaining scene. Like they're running away from Van Pelt. Like Matt says, there's soap on the floor. Peter creates this elaborate, mousetrap inspired thing where a Mousetrap, the board game, where he like uses some compressed oxygen to like fire a canoe at him and knock him through the wall, and he's shooting the heads off some mannequins. It's weird. Anyway. And we get Kirsten Dunst using a little scanning gun to red laser his eyeballs and says, price check.
Price check. And he's like, getting hit with
as
the
though
red
he's
light.
Actually going blind. Yeah.
Right. And then it says no sale.
No sale. Yeah.
That's not how those work. You had to scan a SKU.
Yeah. So meanwhile, Alan crashes the cop car into the department store. Oh, because he tricked Carl and handcuffed him to the thing, but then they heard over the radio the man with the gun holding people hostage, so they go to the department store. Mm-hmm. And the car knocks a wall of paint cans onto Van Pelt. So for the moment, we're meant to believe he's out of commission. Then we get a cutscene where BB Newirth is driving along doing like guided affirmation statements.
Yes.
And comes to a stop sign and sees the stampede going across the street. And she gets out of her car to look at it, which, I'm sorry, if I saw elephants and rhinos walking probably 15 feet in front of me, I would be backing that car up so fast.
100%. And by the way, every scene we see in this town, everything is going crazy. There are people looting the department store.
Yes.
Around them as this is going on. There's people running through the streets, fires, cars are abandoned in the middle of the streets upside down. She's completely unaware. She's just at work. Where do you work?
I know. I don't know.
How far away have you been that this is the first indication? The stampede?
Yeah. It's very
Where
strange.
Are you?
Yeah, where has she been this whole day? Anyway, a monkey gets in her car, and few minutes
Crashes
later,
it.
the monkey makes her scream, and she crashes the car. She's fine. Okay, the crew gets back to the parish mansion, which is now overrun with vines.
Very Rainforest Cafe.
Yes, but first, we get a scene of Carl back in his, like, literally the hood has fallen off of his cop car. The doors are missing. Like, it's barely operating at this point. And I just love, like, I think one of my favorite comedic moments in this movie is when he sees BB Newworth on the street and she flags him down for help, and he pulls up next to her. And as he comes to a stop, his car, like, fully backfires. And he goes, "Is there a problem, ma'am?" And I just love this, like, police officer acting like he's in a position to help anybody when his car looks like it has been through that conveyor belt machine from earlier in the movie.
Yeah, I love that moment.
So good. Okay. So, and also apparently the vines from the parish house have, like, spread throughout the city because then his cop car gets entirely eaten by vines and like pulled into the forest.
Which, why would vines and plants want to eat metal?
It's a great question.
There you go. Bon appetit.
All right, so back to the board game. Sarah rolls, and her thing says, this is one of my least favorite ones. "Every month at the quarter moon, there'll be a monsoon in your lagoon." All right, Dr. Seuss.
Yeah, like, make a decision on your rhyming scheme. This is the first one where you're throwing a third rhyme in there. It doesn't work.
Right.
You just basically said what it was, monsoon. You're not, like, really
Right.
burying the lead. There's no riddle. It's not fun. Very lazy.
Right. Exactly. But it starts raining inside. Like, immediately water is, like, rushing down the stairs. It sweeps them away. There's a crocodile suddenly, like, in the lake that the house is now, like, filling with water.
Mm-hmm.
Which, by the way, I think alligators and crocodiles are the scariest thing on the planet.
Oh, so
like,
scary.
Animal-wise, there's very few animals I would less want to encounter than an alligator or crocodile.
Oh my god. Davey just showed me a video of a crocodile the other day. It was, like, walking around, and it was making sounds like Harrison, our dog, makes. And I was like, oh god.
In the early days of the internet, it's such a, like, shocking moment for me that it's forever impressed on my brain. But remember back, like, in kind of the early days of Facebook, before there was, like, any attempt at content moderation, and you could see kind of just, like, anything on like, videos. I have such a distinct memory of, like, this circus performance and I don't remember where it is, but this, like, clown is patting the tongue of an open mouth crocodile. And then it's like trained to tolerate this as part of the circus act. But then the crocodile snaps its jaw closed and rolls its body and rips the clown's arm off. And it is forever impressed in my brain.
Oh no, I'm not Googling that.
No, don't. Nobody should see it. It was horrifying.
Oh.
Anyway, so they are kind of, like, climbing up on the chandelier to avoid the crocodiles. Meanwhile, BB Newworth and Carl open the front door of the house and, like, try to open the front door, and Carl, like, shoots his gun at the door, and, like, holes spring out water, and then, like, the whole, like, avalanche of water comes out and pushes them down the street and drains the house of all the water.
I was like, they're dead.
Oh, yeah, 100%.
Instant death.
But they're fine. We
Just
get a
like
scene
Van
of them.
Pelt with the paint cans. You're dead.
Right.
You're
dead.
literally dead.
But we see them floating on the two front doors down, like, the river that is now the street, seeing the alligators. Kind of funny.
Yeah, I like them surfing on the doors like Kate Winslet.
Yeah.
At the end of Titanic.
So the crew makes it back up to the attic to finish the game. Alan makes a joke about Colonel Mustard with the candlestick or something. And he's like, "Clue," which I thought was kind of funny. But also, your lives are in danger. So now's not the time, Alan. Not right now. I can't remember who rolls, but the rhyme this time is "Beware the ground on which you stand. The floor is quicker than the sand." Oh, maybe it's him. And he rolls and starts sinking into the floor of the attic.
Mm-hmm.
And they keep giving him, like, they keep trying to pull him out. Oh, yeah, the graphics of that were pretty rough.
Yeah, they just put, like, a wavy effect on the actual floor. They could have
Yes.
just made sand.
Yeah, you're right. They could have just like suddenly had it full of sand.
Yeah,
that,
sand
like,
started coming through the cracks on the ground, and then he should have sunk through that.
Yeah, I agree. That
Anyway.
would have looked better. So, but my favorite thing is they keep trying to like pull him out of it and giving him things to hold on to that keep coming apart. And he's like,
Oh, yeah.
stop giving me things that come apart.
Yes. I love that moment.
And
I
then,
think Judy rolls next, or Julie, or whatever her name is. Kirsten.
okay. And it just says, there is a lesson you will learn. Sometimes you must go back a turn. And the ground just solidifies.
Yeah, which is like, I don't know why, but
Yeah.
they're like, smart. And she's
Yeah.
like, thanks. And I'm like, what did you do? You just rolled the dice.
She didn't do anything.
Yeah.
Peter rolls, and the rhyme is something about like, if you need a hand, something, something, we all have 8. And we get spiders. And Matt, these spiders alternate between straight up Party City rubber spiders and the worst CGI spiders I've ever seen in my life.
Oh my god, they're so video game. They're so like online 90s video game.
It's
like copy paste little things that
really
so shiny, so cartoon like. And then the
Yes.
rubber ones, you can see like the way the legs move.
Yes. Oh my god.
Like
It's
jiggle.
bad. It's really bad.
Oh my gosh. I will say, I don't know how they did it back then with, like, you know, having the actors interact with non, you know, things that aren't in the movie. But the kids
Yeah.
did pretty well. Like,
Yeah, I agree.
you know? I mean, usually it's so obvious. It's so obvious, even with adults and stuff, even no matter what. It was pretty well done, I have to say.
I agree. I think the challenge, like, number one, child actors, as we know, are almost exclusively terrible. But the two of them actually were pretty great throughout the whole
Yeah.
movie, I think.
I agree.
And interestingly, even though she's supposed to be his like older sister by several years and she's like much taller than him, fun piece of trivia is that she's only 6 months older than him in real
no
life.
way.
Yeah.
He looks so young, that's why.
Yeah. Okay. So they send Peter down to get an axe from the woodshed, and there's kind of a funny scene where he like the woodshed is locked, so he picks up an axe laying next to it to start breaking open the lock, and he takes several swings at it before he like looks directly at the camera and realizes that he's holding the axe. Which I thought that was kind of funny.
That was the best. I love moments like that in movies, like little breaks of the fourth wall or whatever.
Winks to the audience, yeah.
Yeah.
So BB Newirth, meanwhile, comes home, but Peter like pushes her into a closet and closes her in there to keep her safe, and runs upstairs, starts swinging the axe at the spiders. Kirsten Dunst like is about to get the game and gets poison darted by one of the flowers. Not good, but she manages to put the dice in Sarah's mouth because her hands are stuck in the floor, and she spits them out on the game, and the thing says, "You're almost there with much at stake, and now the ground begins to quake." And the spiders are getting pretty close, but then, and we get again one of my favorite comedic moments where this like only Alan's face is visible in the floor, and like the spider is getting close, and he blows at the spider to like try to get it to go away, which I thought was very funny.
Yes.
But then the spiders all run away because the ground starts splitting open, and like the house basically splits in half, and Alan starts swinging around on vines like Tarzan. And he almost gets got by the lion, but he manages to snag the game from the ground before it kind of like falls into the crevasse of the earth. And he's about to roll when who should show up but Van Pelt, who tells him to stand up and drop whatever is in his hands. And so he does, and we get kind of like an extended dramatic scene of like one of the dice goes like rolling down through the crevice, hitting off of things as he's talking. Van Pelt is talking to him. And Van Pelt is like, "It's time for you to start running." And Alan is like, "No." And he says, "My father always told me to face what I'm afraid of." And he's like, "They're like finally behaving like a man," or something like that. And asks him if there's any last words. And at this point, the dice finally comes to a stop, and the little bubble in the middle says Jumanji. And so Alan realizes he has won the game, and so his last word is Jumanji. And as Van Pelt shoots a gun at both Alan and Sarah, the bullet like comes right before their face and then gets like sucked back into the game along with the rest of the animals and Van Pelt. And this was the part of the movie that I had zero memory of because I like remembered all of that, but I didn't remember that the movie ends with them coming back to their childhood.
No, me neither. I couldn't remember how it ended. I was going to assume it ended with us following along in current day and maybe seeing like a nod to them as a flashback.
Yeah.
And I was so surprised. And also, everything goes back into the game, not the plants.
Well, it kind of instantly, that's true. You're right.
Just saying.
The plants.
They could have just, anyway, I'm just saying.
I know. I couldn't remember if it was going to be one of those like magical transformations where suddenly the house was like back to normal and like they were still in present day, but instead it took them back to 1969. And
also, I think I guess they're magical animals that live forever because we do hear at the beginning that the bats flew out in 1969, and then when the movie starts in like 1995 or whatever current day, the exterminator's like, oh yeah, we haven't seen these bats since the 60s. It's the same bats from the game.
Yeah.
26 years later.
Yeah, that's one old fucking bat up in the attic. All right. Well, the movie kind of wraps up with Alan's father comes back because he forgot his note cards for his speech, and he and Alan hug, and they kind of have their first like tender moment. Mm-hmm. And they
apologize to each other.
Yeah. And so their relationship's on the right track. He says he doesn't have to go to boarding school, etc.
Mm-hmm. Him and Judy go off and take the board game, and they get rid of it. They tie bricks around it and throw it in the water to get rid of it for good, which, I mean, could have been a better way, but,
100%. I was like, dude, this is such a lazy way to get rid of this, but okay.
For sure. It's like, least that forever.
Why not just stick it in the fireplace and try burning it?
Hello.
But anyway, they kiss, and then we cut to present day where Alan and Sarah are together. She's pregnant, and they've invited the kids to Christmas.
Mm-hmm. And their parents are alive on the phone. Everyone is like alive and happy. They're wealthy. The house is like a Hallmark movie.
Yes. And apparently Alan has hired Judy and Peter's parents and is like, when can you start? And they were like, well, we were thinking of going on a skiing trip. And they both scream, no, which was kind of funny.
Yeah, I love that.
They're like, oh, we need you to start immediately. And they're like, okay, all right.
Yeah. And they meet the kids because they're like, oh, we've heard so much about your kids. There's Judy and Peter here. And it's, of course, the same actors. And they look just very, very happy and gleeful, unlike in, when we met them in the previous
in the 90s
of time. Yeah. But they're like very, very emotional about seeing the kids. Like, oh, they're just like we remember. Oh, because we heard so much about them and all this stuff. And I just thought to myself, if I was these people that just got hired by these people that were obsessed with my kids, I'd be like, oh, we have a problem.
Oh, I know. I fully agree.
We got to talk on the way home about boundaries with your boss.
Totally. Exactly.
Because the kids don't remember them at all, of course, because they weren't born. And this movie does not apply the butterfly effect rules of time travel and all that.
Right. Exactly.
So, just, yeah.
But then the movie ends with like two children speaking a language I didn't recognize.
Me neither.
Coming across or hearing the drums and seeing the game kind of half buried in some sand, which seems like they're setting it up for a sequel. But as we know, nothing happened for like 20 years. So we'll be talking about that next week.
Exactly. And on that, I mean, just a quick piece of trivia from the movie that is not much of a spoiler for those who've seen the new movie, which I have not. But I thought the new movie was, when it was being marketed, was going to be just a reboot. And then shortly after it came out, it was like very obvious it was more of a sequel to this movie. So I'm going to guess that the new movie is going to incorporate that ending, and wherever that new movie is based is going to be wherever that beach is supposed to be.
Yeah. Interesting. Okay.
So we'll see.
Just a couple fun pieces of trivia. Bruce Willis and Tom Hanks were both considered for the role of Alan instead of Robin Williams. And Tim Curry was originally supposed to play Van Pelt, which I think would have been really fun.
Ooh, I heard Kirstie Alley was up for Bonnie Hunt's role, but had a different engagement of some type.
Yeah. And this is I think my favorite piece of trivia. In the moment where Van Pelt is buying the gun at the gun shop, the woman who plays Louise, who's like the gun shop assistant, she is not credited in the end credits. And to this day, nobody knows who she is.
Oh my God.
Isn't that funny?
Who are you?
Louise, if you're out there, reveal yourself.
Take your place in cinematic history. You deserve it.
Yeah. Okay. Tell me about the ratings for this movie.
Oh, by the way, the language at the end is French, it says.
Oh, weird. I wonder why I didn't like hear it or like
Me neither. It
figure
says
out
that
what
the
it was.
game winds up on a beach in France. That wasn't my piece of trivia, but hey, there you go. Oh, okay. I just thought this was cute. Where the movie was filmed in Keene, New Hampshire, they still have the parish shoe sign up.
Oh, yeah. I did read that.
How cute. I totally would. That is like, this movie, as you'll hear from my rating, held up. So I would keep that up.
Okay.
Okay. Let me go to the ratings. We had on... Don't even get me started with these ratings, okay? On IMDb, we have 7.1.
Okay.
Okay. Rotten Tomatoes, the tomato meter, 52%.
What?
And the audience meter, 63%.
Oh my god.
And I started to read through some of the Rotten Tomato reviews that were like top reviewed people that were like negative about the movie. The biggest eye rolls I've ever done. If anyone felt like a seismic shift in the earth, it was my eye roll. Because it was like things like unimaginative. They did very little with the animals besides show them. What are you doing? What do you want them to do with the animals?
That's dumb. I don't like that.
Dumb things. And like super hypercritical things about like effects used for the time. And it's like, chill out.
Yeah.
Take a breath.
It was the 90s. Like, CGI was just becoming a thing.
God. But anyway.
Okay, well...
I loved this.
Okay. What would you rate it?
Gosh, I would rate it I'll give it like an 8.4.
Okay.
I'll give it an 8.5. 8.5. Why not? Why am I holding back the 0.1? I
Slight
really enjoyed
increase,
it, and
okay.
I don't have a ton of notes, you know?
Yeah, I'm going to give it a solid 8. I thought, like, it was really fun. There's not a ton I would change about the movie, which we'll talk about in a second. But for me, it was a beauty. What about you?
Oh, total beauty. Total beauty.
Yeah, I think for the reboot, like, honestly, the only complaints I have about the movie are the special effects were, like, very of the time and didn't age particularly well. Some of it, obviously, as we talked about, looked better than others, but... Like, I read one of the review complaints was like, oh, there wasn't much character development. And I'm like, well, I feel like if you look at Alan and Sarah, like, they've kind of, like, healed through their trauma and reconnected and built a new life and, like, kind of fixed things about the past that they wish that had gone differently. And so...
I agree.
I don't agree. I think there's a lot of...
I agree with what you're saying.
I think there's a lot of development for them.
Yeah, and Sarah's character could have very easily, in every other type of movie and show around this time, they either would have had her just kind of forget about what happened and move on and live about her life and pretend it never happened and be living a normal life now that she just didn't want to go back, or she would have been in a mental institution or something.
Yeah.
And this was like a way more like realistic view of that, like someone who's dealt with their trauma, who's in therapy, who's trying to like, and then they explore it together in little ways. There's a lot of nuance in their acting, and even with like the two kids, there's like the moments where they're like, you know, they're dealing with grief differently themselves. They're both dealing with the death of their parents in totally different ways. And they have like that one little conversation towards the beginning where he's like, you have to stop lying and making up stories or they're going to send you away. And she's like, what do you think they're going to do if you don't start talking to them? Yeah. And it's like, that was a very sweet little moment of like, you know what I mean? And then you see her grow through the movie to trust people again and him grow to, you know, and you see Alan develop as like, oh, I'm not going to do the things my dad did to me, to this little kid, and I'm healing through that way too. Right. Bullshit.
Yeah, I agree.
And Carl gets his comeuppance. I forgot in the new world. In the past, when they flash back at the end, he confesses to his father that he's the one who ruined the shoes.
Yes.
Which I was happy about that, even though they don't follow through and see what happens with Carl after that. Is he like literally the shoe giant of the world now?
Right.
But yeah, I mean, clearly Paris Shoes was still around in the new world and thriving. Yeah. So good for them. So my thing I would like to see different is similar to you, better effects, but I do think they did well for the time. But really, the monkeys' faces I think were not good for the time.
I agree.
But I would say, not that I have a lot of complaints about the things they chose to do with the Jumanji board, but, you know, keep the creativity and the varied things happening with Jumanji. I hope it's not like a, you know, scene by scene, you know, bats and then bugs. And, you know, I hope it's more, we see more.
Yeah.
With a reboot rather than just like updated versions of what we see, which I'm sure we will.
Yeah.
I don't know what to expect from the reboot end because I've seen like trailers when it was very first coming out, and I thought to myself, listen, I think The Rock is hot. Okay, there I said it. So I'll see him in anything. I think he's funny, and I don't mind. I think he's a good actor. But this particular movie very much seems like just like a fun ha-ha romp just for giggles and laughs and nostalgia.
Yeah.
So I wasn't expecting much, but they have 3 effing sequels now, so we'll see.
Huh, interesting.
Any thoughts about what you're expecting?
I don't really know what to expect, and there's, like I said, I wouldn't change a whole lot about it aside from the special effects, because I thought it was pretty well done, and, you know, kept it moving. There was very little time where I was like, okay, like, let's move it along or anything like that. Like, it felt tightly paced, which I appreciate. So I'm hoping the new one isn't like 30 minutes longer for no reason. Yeah,
to showcase what an animator can do.
Exactly. Yeah.
Okay, well, I'm excited for it. And then, you know, in addition to our next week's episode of doing the updated Jumanji, which is what's it called, the official name? Return to the Jungle?
I think so.
Jumanji Return to the Jungle from like 2017. Check out our Patreon for Zathura, which is a spin-off of this movie and also exists in the Jumanji universe. And remember, we do all things rebooty. It doesn't have to be a strict reboot. So send recommendations our way of other things too.
Yes, exactly. And I guess if you would like to support our podcast, one of the very best things you could do is to rate and review it on whatever platform you are using to listen to our episodes.
Yes, and please go ahead and tell a friend who you might think Go ahead and tell a friend who you think might be interested, because you have great taste, you have great friends, and word of mouth is the best way to get the word out.
Yeah. Our social media is RebootyPod on Instagram, and you can email us at rebootypod@gmail.com. We love getting emails, so send us a note and say hi.
Yeah, and you've heard me mention it a few times, so check out our Patreon at patreon.com/NandMatt. In addition to movie reviews for things that may not necessarily be reboots, which we're also taking suggestions for, we play fun games and have a bunch of other content on there in our backlog, so check it out.
Yeah, and thanks for listening to Rebooty and the Beast.
We'll see you next week.
Goodbye.
Bye.